Hi, I'm Megan.
I'm Colin, and this is Pet Sitter Confessional,
an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Time to Pet and Pet Perennials. We previously interviewed Becky Eberly about her selling her business back on episode 122, and today we are really excited to interview the person who bought her business. JP Anunciacion immigrated from the Philippines in 2006, and after climbing the corporate ladder, he needed a change, and he found his love and passion for pet care. JP purchased the business and dove headlong, learning everything that he could to be a better leader and to grow the business. Let's get started.
Well, first and foremost, yes, Colin, it's such an honor to be on your show, and just wanted to say hi to all the listeners, and be here is just a great honor, and I'm very excited to be here. And that's a great first question to ask, by the way. As you, most of the listeners know, being a pet sitter is not easy, but more so being an outsider buying a business into this great industry is also something that's kind of hard. I guess, just to introduce myself, I am from the Philippines. I was born and raised in the Philippines, so that kind of add more maybe calling to the question is like, well, how does that work? But yeah, I came to this country 2007-ish, and I just like any other foreigner who dreams to be in America wants to live that American dream. Which fast forward today, I'm very blessed and be leaving that dream that we have right now. But just to let everybody know, it was hard. It wasn't an easy journey for me. My background was mainly the business process outsourcing, the BPO, which what I did was I was involved in a lot of the call center stuff, customer service, telemarketing, sales, and that whole 9 yards. I came to this country as one of those call center gurus that was hired from the Philippines to be here. And I was very blessed to climb up that corporate world at a very young age and to be involved in just building, developing, training, hiring, recruiting, everything that's involved in call centers. And call centers was very big outsourcing in the Philippines, where I was from. And that's kind of where my background is. And I did that for about 15 years. And it reached a point where there was just a focal point in my career that I've owned a call center in the Philippines, and I owned a small call center in South Florida, where I was from, and or where I moved from 3 years ago. And what the decision was really, really huge focal point in my life. I guess to summarize everything, it reached a point a little bit where I knew that I was already having a bad relationship with my previous business partner. I don't want to get too much detail into that, but that was really the big decision maker. I was stressing myself where I'm no longer happy with the industry that I've loved and developed and learned to love. And I was trying to make a decision where what should I do? And it was a point that I could no longer sleep. I could no longer move forward, and I was losing weight. And the first thing I've done was I told my wife I want a puppy. I want a dog. So it kind of started there. I true enough, I got a puppy, and then I started walking this puppy every day, and I see a lot of people walking in the community and seeing in America how you guys love pets and how passionate people are here in America, especially. I keep saying here in America, just so you know that culturally speaking, in the Philippines, pets are very different. They're I hate to say it, sometimes they're just locked up in a kennel outside the house. They're not. You guys here in America, here the pets live such a great life that sometimes I wish I was their pet, I'm trying to say. So, but yeah, I mean, I saw that opportunity, and I said, you know what? I told my wife, I'm gonna I'm gonna cross that bridge. I'm time for me to move on, and I wanted to make that giant leap of faith. I'm ready. It wasn't as easy as saying I'm ready. It took a while, maybe a couple years for me to have that decision. But I guess, Colin, when your back is against the wall and you have your whys and you realize that your whys in your life is no longer in line to what you do every day as your job or your source of living, then that would make you decide that you got to jump into something else. And true enough, through research and a lot of research, I happened to just land into something that was a match made in heaven. You have interviewed the previous owner of Dog Days and Catnaps, Becky Eberly. She was an angel sent from above. I was just very fortunate that after looking at several pet businesses, I found the right one, and we met. And her whys in selling the business kind of matched to my whys and why I wanted to buy the business.
I love hearing that process of really refinding your why after 15 years in customer service and call centers, trying to refocus and it sounds like almost had to rediscover who you were and what you wanted out of your job, out of your life, moving forward. And that this move into pet care, into buying this business, was a way to get things in realignment for you, so that you could, just basic things like just sleep at night and have more peace in your life.
You nailed it, Colin. You nailed it. That was actually everything that you just said. Kind of give me a goosebump. It kind of reminds me of my situation where I was, where I could no longer sleep at night. Where the money that you're bringing in, you realize is not making you happy. And I think most of the listeners would agree that a lot of people have left the corporate world and started the pet sitting business, and they realize that there's so much to just having that income, the salary that you get versus to what you're doing right now, and just have that true calling and passion and taking care of pets. Sometimes, hey, you know what? It might not give you the same income in corporate world, but you would find somewhat that happiness that you can't find somewhere else.
And so you're making this transition, JP, into pet care, and you decided to buy an existing business. What was the decision between buying versus starting one on your own from zero?
That is a very good question. You know what? Before I even found Becky and Dog Days and Catnaps, I was researching on how to start a pet sitting business. And you would find a lot of the pet sitters and the owners of such businesses are very kind people. When I say that, when I reach out to others in my area that already are doing it as a company, they were willing to sit down with me and educate me. And they were sharing to me what they have done and what they do. They started giving me and pointing me to the right directions, like PSI or NAPS. And I start researching about what PSI does and NAPS does. And I've learned a lot. And to be honest with you, I even signed up with Rover. And I became a Rover pet sitter, and just learning about your platform, your competition, should we say, it got you into it. But I was more into willing to start from scratch, but going back to why I was doing it in the first place got me into I was more of my situation, Colin, was different. It was quite unique. Being a foreigner, I was in this country with an executive visa. I was a non-immigrant, and I was being a non-immigrant with an executive visa. You have a petitioner. So my business partner was my petitioner. So my family's future was in the hands of somebody else. So my decision making quite so complicated that if I decided to leave the company that I kind of supposedly own and work for, I would lose my ability to stay in your wonderful country.
Mm.
So, hiring a very good immigration lawyer, I found out that, hey, if I could own a business, then I could be here in this country, which would put me to be an investor, which isn't easy. So anybody in America that is an American citizen could buy a business. Not all foreigners could buy a business. So that makes it more complicated in my situation. There's certain criteria that I need to qualify for, obviously. And number two, you're going to be in a microscope that the government has to approve you as a buyer and your sellers has to approve you, which makes it great. I was with Becky and say, hey, Becky, the good thing about me buying your business, the government has to say yes first before I could even buy your business. so they already did the scrutiny for you. Right. So, but you know what? Just looking outside and looking back, I think if there is a business out there that is really established, the value really is a lot of customers and a lot of people take into consideration the tenureship of how long your company has been in business. Mm. So a lot of times when I say that we've been in business since 2000, not to take all the credit there, Becky was running this business for 16 years.
Yeah.
I only came in on the 17th year, but I got the opportunity to double the size of the company when I bought the business. I was blessed enough to be able to use my background in my previous industry, apply it to the new industry that I'm jumping in. And I was fortunate enough to tell Becky, I did you justice by buying this business, because in the span of just 2 years, from 35 pet sitters, and that's what I bought. I bought the asset of the company and the team and the existing customers. But 2 years moving forward, in 2019, our biggest year, we were up to 70 pet sitters at some point, and we doubled the size of the company revenue wise. We were making and doubling the amount of bookings that we had. So that was great. And again, looking back, saying that, should I started or buy? I guess it's just a matter of time. If you're starting from scratch, you got to be more patient. You got to be more willing to put more legwork, and that's what I bought the business for, because Becky did such a great job in 16 years to build up, and I was just there to basically materialize on what she built for 16 years.
Well, first off, I have to say I've learned more about immigration law and that process talking with you these last couple of minutes than I have probably from anything I've read or been involved with before. So
it's not easy. It's not easy, Colin. So a lot of people take that for granted, and I share that. I share this story to a lot of people, pet sitters or not, that sometimes, especially what's going on with this country right now, right? Like last week, all the chaos that's going on politically is just disturbing,
right?
And at the end of the day, people just have to realize that a lot of people take it for granted that being an American is such a privilege. It's not just a right, So I don't get to enjoy that privilege yet. I hope one day, and I pray and work so hard to be. But a lot of people don't realize that you wake up every morning to enjoy that freedom and enjoy that privilege to call yourself an American. People like me don't get to enjoy that every day.
And it's a reminder of when you talked about your whys. We all have that, and to know that was a major deciding factor in this moving forward and buying this business, because you saw it as that was a part of that puzzle that you were putting together. And then it also sounds like you were able to see the company and it meshed well with the strengths and your background that you had and all the experience from the customer service, the operation, the business process side of things.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think owning a pet sitting company and running a customer service and call centers are very, very similar. You get used to understanding your customer, what they want, what they need. The only thing that learning curve that I have to learn, and that's why I moved up here in North Florida, because I was in South Florida back then. I realized that I thought when I bought the business, you could be quote unquote an absentee owner, Colin, and you think that buying a business could just run itself. One thing that you would learn from the get go is that you cannot do that. If you buy a business, you got to get your hands dirty. You got to get involved, and you got to learn it firsthand. You can't just, you can't buy a business and expect it to just run by itself.
Have you heard about Time to Pet? Chris-Anne from Raining Cats and Dogs has this to say.
Becoming a Time to Pet client has been a game changer for us. We can give our pet services clients real-time, cloud-based information they never imagined they'd be interested in. And most importantly, to me personally, I can better manage my company and look forward to more. And not a small thing, Time to Pet is responsive to my requests for new features and modifications to existing ones.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software for your business, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of Pet Sitter Confessional get 50% off their first 3 months when they sign up at timetopet.com/confessional. In my conversation with Becky, I was talking about a lot of the, how to outline the processes, get everything documented, get everything put in place. And now hearing you, it's going, I can read, I can understand things intellectually about the business and how it operates, but actually working the business is a whole other story and is part of that learning process when you come into and you go into a business.
Correct. Absolutely. One thing that I could tell you is, if you listeners listen to the previous podcast that Colin had with the previous owner, a lot of it involves with Becky doing a lot. She was more detail oriented. She had all the procedures placed. When I took over, she had manuals in place for me. She had everything. Everything was so organized that it didn't give me a hard time transitioning. I think if you want to learn, for those of you, if you want to be on the seller side, if you're interested in selling your business, I encourage you to listening to that. But also for my interview today is to learn that it really is a great value if you're buying a business and the seller is so organized. It makes the transitioning so easy. Becky was already scheduling a cruise trip with the family that she deserves 2 weeks from the moment I bought the business. So I'm like, Becky, you're going to be out of the radar in 2 weeks. So I was panicking. I'm like, how am I going to learn this? Am I going to be no, but you know what? Because she was so organized that the transition was super duper easy. And again, a lot of credit to her. I think one of the things that we did decide that I asked a favor from her, though, Colin, is I asked her, would it be okay that you just introduce me to the team as the new marketing guy, like a new marketing manager? I think I made that decision mainly because I didn't want to, I guess for me, I didn't want to rattle everybody. I'm not the type of person that, hey, I'm the new boss. I'm the new guy, I just don't think that's going to work. So I made an arrangement with her that the moment I bought the business, she emailed everybody and say, there's a new marketing guy that's going to come in. He's going to introduce himself. He's going to get involved in the marketing side. So that's how I kind of transitioned myself. I know the couple of the managers that I took in, one of Matt, such a great guy. He was the reservations guy back then with Becky. So I got him, talked to him, sat down, And exact same thing. I told him my whys and I told him why I'm buying the business, and I offered him a full-time job. And he was the first guy that I brought in and said, you know what? I'm going to give you a full-time job. He was having a baby, their first baby at that time. So it kind of worked out. I told him the great news is you can work at your own pace anytime, work from home. And that kind of worked out. He knew that he was the only guy who knew who I am. And then I brought in and hired another reservations manager to take over his job so he could be there to help me run the business on a day-to-day. So both of them kind of knew who I was from the beginning, but the rest of the team didn't know who I was and that I was the new owner.
And so why was that kind of transition to you so important? Because I feel like that transition can be held in many different ways. Like, one where the new owner just waltzes in and go, well, I'm the boss, kind of like you mentioned, what you didn't want to do, versus this
Correct.
slow introduction,
Correct.
this personal introduction that you had from Becky to everybody saying, hey, this is who's coming on board, and getting that more one-on-one connection. So why did you decide to make that transition with the employees like that?
I think a lot of it is that I think, to be honest, on a personal level, I think I kind of felt insecure, if that's the term, because I'm not one of you guys yet. I wasn't a pet sitter for 15 years. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be judged like an outsider, a new owner outsider. I wanted to kind of train myself first. I want to be the pet sitter. I started pet sitting from the moment I bought the business. I tried to study how it feels to be a pet sitter. What are the ins and outs? And I want to learn the procedures of the company myself. So as a leader, you cannot just lead without being there. You can't just be that general that hides behind the desk. You have to be courageous enough to be out there and do the job yourself. So I gave myself the time to learn it. So when I was ready and prepared, I was able to face my pet sitters and say, hey, you know what? I know how you feel, because you cannot understand your team if you're not there doing the job yourself.
Right, which is something that many of us may miss through this conversation of needing to gain that connection and being able to empathize with your sitters and being able to empathize with your employees of, as you just said, I know what it's like. I know what those days are like. And that it was part of that process. But I'm sure that also showed the employees that you were now leading of like a lot of humility and a lot of ability to learn from others, not just coming in from on high and saying this is the way it's going to be and blah 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 blah, but like really taking that time to soak in everything and get to know not just the business but the people too.
Correct. That is true. I think I was also kind of concerned about pushbacks on the scale of things business wise. I felt like it was a lot of risk to just from the get go tell that, hey, there was a transitioning, business was on sale. I bought the business. People start leaving the company because they don't know this new guy. Customers start leaving because there's a new owner. It kind of makes sense to me to just learn the business, be behind the curtain first, understand truly the business, understand what your people are going through. And then the next step that I did there was I started meeting the pet sitters one by one. And I guess that was the new technique and new strategy that I could say I did kind of took over for Becky and changed a little bit, because Becky was more into the virtual, meet through FaceTime or Skype or whatnot. I kind of learned it from my call center business that let them come into your office, meet the person who you are, understand what kind of quote unquote boss you are. And you would probably get a little bit more mileage out of them, if you know what I'm trying to say. So what I did is I started calling them and I ask my managers and say, hey, who do you think are the top pet sitters? Can I start with them first? Because they were the key people in the business to begin with. So I started with them, really not interviewing them. It was more of them interviewing me and me telling them that who I am and I'm the new owner, by the way, and kind of introducing myself face to face versus sending out a mass email that, hey, this is the new owner. So that kind of worked well, so to speak.
What other strengths do you feel like you were able to bring in from your experience in call centers and running that business? From what I know, call centers can be pretty brutal places, and the amount of attention to detail and customer service there is really, really high. And I know you dealt with a lot of the business processes. So as you're learning the business, as you're getting connected and you're getting building these relationships with the pet sitters, what else are you bringing along with you from your previous 15 years experience?
I think most of it is the basics. Like when I train new people to be on the phone, is I always tell them that it's the irony of things. I'm teaching people that customer is always right, customer is the king. But at the end of the day, I always tell them that customers are also the biggest liars. I hate to say it, but you know. So it's again, it's just the nature of things, you know, because which is true. I hate to say it, I'm a customer too. Sometimes people call you, not just call you, they would yell at you. They will sometimes, unfortunately, have to curse at you.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned just being on the phone, you could tell different cultures from where they are, you know. By somebody calling in and always being in a hurry, I already know that they're from New York. New Yorkers are like, boom, boom, boom. I'm on the phone. Here's what I want. Give me what I want. Hang up the phone. And then you call somebody from Texas and this grandma start telling you what was dinner for Thanksgiving a couple months ago, right? So there's different kind of learnings and basics that you kind of get from the call center customer service, is understanding who your customers are.
Yeah.
And how to handle them. You can't handle all customers the same.
Right.
You know, and you always have to take in and absorb the blow. You know, a lot of times in the pet sitting world, not all pet sitting clients are the same. Right. You know, I'm not going to say some, most of them are the nicest people, but some of them could be difficult at times, you know, but with that specialty of how to handle customers, I guess that was the key. I kind of knew how to kind of, you know, play my cards when it comes to different kinds of customers. And it's very, very important. And in fact, Colin, the reason why I moved here in North Florida instead of being a remote owner is on a Friday night, in the first Friday night that I owned the business, I was waiting for my wife to come home from her work and call it a week, a day, a night, and bring my wife for a dinner date. Guess what? I was on the phone for 2 hours and trying to pacify a very angry customer.
Oh, no.
So, and I realized, and what I did is I told my wife, that was it. That was the focal point, and say, we're going to move up in North Florida. I'm going to live where my customers are. I'm going to live where my pet sitters are. And what I did when I moved here is I met with that client face to face. I met with that client face to face. I took the humble pie of apologizing to that client face to face. And I told her that we're going to make things right with her. From a negative review in Yelp to an updated, we didn't ask her to update it. Yeah. In a couple of months, we got the best review ever in Yelp, which is hard to get. Right. But that it's all about it. You gotta be there to. It's all about customer service,
right?
You know that, and this pet sitting. I think that's what I've learned with you guys, with the best pet sitters out there. I've learned that it's all about that extra mile that you do for the pets and your clients. You know, picking up their mail from their mailbox. I'm like, what? I thought we were paid as a pet sitter. Why do you do that? Or taking their recycling bin to the curb or their trash to the curb. You know, this extra miles that you do for your clients. At the end of the day, that's customer service for you. You know, and that matters. So that what I did in the call center, put it in, but there's so much customer service that you can do, not just with customer service. It's just like plainly being there for your clients.
Yeah. And you've outlined how you made that transition with your employees. Did you have a similar approach, or how did you approach making that transition with the clients, the existing client base that you had?
I think that's a very good question. To be honest with you, I couldn't, plain honestly, I couldn't even remember how Becky introduced me to the clients. But can I be honest with you, Colin? I think I always believe us owning the company and being a company owner for 15 years prior to this, that not them trying to say that clients are not important. I think I always believe that without your people, your company is nothing. I'm not trying to say that I'm always going to be pro-employee. What I'm trying to say is that I think my strategy back then is that if I knew that I have the support of the team and the pet sitters, you will get the support of your clients. I didn't know that. I wasn't too sure if we emailed everybody about me and introduced myself to people. We might have been later down the road, but it was more of, if I knew that your team is on board, you have their loyalty, you have their support, it doesn't really matter if who the owner is at the end of the day.
Right.
Because your pet sitters, they're the initial handshake for the company, not me. The clients don't get to meet the owners. They don't get to choose who the company owners is, but they get to choose who their pet sitters are. So that's kind of was more logical to me to know that as long as the team were on board, not that I don't care about who the client is, I just felt like it was more important just to get those pet sitters on board first.
Right. And you talk about where you should be investing your energy. It's in your team,
Correct.
as you said, right? Like that's where the primary focus needs to be. The clients will be there. They're still going to get served because you are taking care of the pet sitter and knowing that there's still that connection. Because I think, sometimes we may feel like, oh, anytime I make a transition in my business or I'm part of a transition, my clients are going to run away and there's going to be this big to do. But what you're saying is like, no, there's like focus on the basics, focus on the people in the company, make sure they're okay, that they're well cared for, and then the rest of that stuff is going to follow.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, the company is obviously, logistically speaking, I bought the asset of buying the existing customers. But for me, the asset value was more of the people that's already in the company, working with the company, because right now it's not that easy to hire this kind of people. For you to grow this big, it's hard to hire good, trusted, and reliable pet sitters. So, for me, that was more important. Again, I'm not trying to downplay or disrespect my clients. I'm just saying that the rest would follow if you knew that as an owner that you have to gain the trust and respect of your people first. Right.
Now, in that transition, did you experience any pushback from employees or clients?
I did. It's not 100% all the time, as we know. Like when we were trying to push for this call earlier, when you're ready, there's some pushbacks, but yeah, there was. I know that there was one pet sitter that was specifically not happy because she felt like, it was more so with Becky that she was kind of upset with it. She said that Becky should have at least let them know, but no, at the end of the day, business owner, you have every right on how to run your business. And one thing that I could tell everyone, that you have to put the fine line, like wall, to how you really want to run your business. Because at the end of the day, you want to run your business the way you want to run your business. You can't let others dictate on how to run your business. That's the time that you would see yourself going downhill and spiral and no longer happy with the business that you own, is if you're more concerned on pet sitters telling you what to do, customers telling you what to do. You know, you got to put a little bit of boundaries and lines to that. But, you know, with that said, I was just able to, again, take over and learn that customer service experience I had, and, you know, kind of empathize with that pet sitter and make her understand why it happened the way it was.
Right.
And you know, she turned around and she came back and work, and we always had a revolving door with our company. I can't force a pet sitter to stay if they're not happy. Some of them would have some personal issues here and there. I asked them to take their break, and you know, I've had some pet sitters that came back after a year or 6 months. You know, and I always tell them that I always have a rule of thumb that, you know, you come when you're ready, you go when you're not ready. I've learned in this pet sitting world that you got to learn to say no now than sorry later. If that kind of makes sense, especially during the holidays, Colin, people would call you on the 23rd to take care of their pets on the 24th. Like, really, is that going to work? You know? So, you know, it's better to say no now than try to squeeze them in your schedule, and then you sacrifice the quality and then you say sorry later. No, I'd rather say that. I'd rather have that very, very hard no than a very hard sorry later.
Right. Well, you know, it's just, you talk about boundaries and the importance of saying no in your business. And yeah, like, your business is your business. You need to run it the way you need to run it. And one of the biggest tools that we have in our tool belts to do that is the power of saying no to things that we don't want to be doing or aren't in alignment with where we want the company to go. And it's really scary to say no, though, right? It's because I may lose that business, or I may upset them because I'm not able to serve them today, or whatever reasons we can put in our brains. But at the end of the day, as you so eloquently put it there, if you are trying to avoid the sorry or the apology or that long 2-hour phone call or this back end work that's going to make it worse for you and make a worse experience for somebody, then if you just stick to your rules, stick to your policies, stick to the direction you're trying to go, and go with that.
Correct. Absolutely. Totally agree. 100%.
So you're coming into the business and you're getting to know people, you're getting connected with clients, you're learning the ins and outs. What were some of the changes that you were really looking to make? And I guess the second half of that question is how did you go about getting those implemented?
So focusing on the business itself, the first 6 months, I let it ride. I let the business run as if Becky still owned the company. I didn't change anything. And then I started seeing some of the things that was working and not working. A lot of it that wasn't really working for me was the marketing side of it. A lot of my background in the BPO was adopting to what works. Like, for example, print ads. There was a lot of costs in print ads, but no business are coming in. So, I mean, it would have been maybe working back in the days for Becky. And again, no disrespect. It was just something that I thought has to be evolving through time. So I started changing the prints to online advertising. So I focus on social media. I focus on Google pay-per-click. I really have to tell you, though, that it really helped a lot knowing that you have that brand name out there for many, many years.
Right.
It got to a point that name itself sell itself. So one of the things that I did not touch nor plan to change ever was to change that brand name. In fact, what I did the first year was improve the website. And I have hired somebody to revamp the entire website. And that's when the new owner came in kind of place. They kind of like, oh, you're the new owner. I could tell because the websites are different and it looks different and feels different. But to be honest with you, it's the same name, just different website. Make it really look newer, make it more modern and more techy, I guess. And I guess that's what social media is everly evolving, and that's kind of where I got. Yelp, guys, I don't know if you love Yelp, but we're not restaurants, but Yelp was a love-hate relationship for me. We've spent a lot of money with them and they don't really give true reviews. Their algorithm is so screwed up. So I took Yelp out of the picture. I took a lot of the other stuff that wasn't really helping a lot. So I focused on just the marketing side that works. And for me, just to shout out, what works for me was revamping the website, driving more traffic to the website, constantly engaging with your leads, meaning your customers, even if they haven't booked with you yet. We send out weekly newsletters to our customers. We don't just sell. We engage, meaning we try to have different content on our newsletters every week. It has to be more of a 70-30 rule, I guess, where 70% has to be non-related to your business and 30% is your business. Same with your posting with your social media. You don't want to keep posting sell. Nobody wants to follow that. You gotta know your viewers, your customers, your listeners for you, and being able to provide valuable content for them. So that's kind of what I changed. I tried to do some of the face-to-face, which I didn't get really more success. I tried to do some face-to-face networking, and again, I just kind of stepped back with that because I just let the brand name and I just let the pet sitters do their work, and that kind of worked out really good for me, Colin.
You started off by talking about letting the business run for 6 months, because that kind of gets connected back to that. You have all of the operating procedures for the business. You've got all the contracts. You've got all of the training manuals, all of these books. To see that in operation before you start making these subtle changes and really putting in the effort and putting in where your gifts and your talents are, just see it as it was. Like I can really see how that would be so important in this transition before you start ripping out the guts of something that you don't understand how it works and don't understand how all these pieces fit together. To go, okay, let's just watch it in operation, and then we'll make these slow, gradual changes and put my effort behind the things that I see where they need to be going. Because if you don't, like you may miss the whole point of the business and its operation and not fully understand exactly what you're changing or why it was there in the first place.
Absolutely. You're right. That is correct.
So, you mentioned you moved to the northern Florida, and you're brand new to the pet industry and brand new to the area. Did you reach out to local pet sitters in that area and start talking with them about their businesses and how they operate?
Yes, I did. And I'll be honest with you, some of them call me nuts. I get some interesting phone calls sometimes. It's like, I know who you are. Like, why did you move in town? I was like, but no, that's plainly not my intention. Right. I guess some, but not all. But you know what? There's a lot of great people in the pet sitting industry. You've interviewed one of my peers, Dog of Bad to the Bone. That was a great interview, great segment in your podcast. I listened, and that's how I knew about you. Just like him, I called him up, sat down with him, have coffee, and I didn't stop there. I think I contacted maybe 4 or 5 people that are already doing what we're doing, and for me, it was more of letting everybody know that who I am. Same with my pet sitters and what I am. I'm not here to dominate the world. I'm not here to command and conquer. I'm here to collaborate. I'm here to learn. I'm here to know that, hey, I'm the new guy, but I'm willing to work with you and learn with you. And I'm willing to share best practices, because that's the only way that we all can succeed. We can't just step on each other's toes. And a lot of times I remind everybody when I tell them that there is more pets out there than pet sitters and pet professionals.
Right.
Plenty for us to share. In fact, there is not enough pet sitters out there. So, for me to collaborate with other pet companies, you know what I always believe, that whatever you give, if you give it with your heart, it always comes back tenfold. And I'm already been a recipient of that last year. All these smaller companies that I collaborated with during the holidays, they don't have enough to cover. So they would come back and call or refer people to us. And the same token, if they're not busy during the summer, we give back and always refer people to them because we're so busy. It's and I've learned that through time that you have to collaborate and learn from each other instead of trying to compete with each other.
Right. Well, then there's that other aspect too of like, as we're all learning and growing in our knowledge and understanding of the business, of client interactions, of new practices and things that we're trying to do, when we share that with other people, that makes everybody better and the industry gets better as a whole. And we all want to see that. We all want to see everybody operating with the best knowledge, with the best experience, with the best tools and resources available to them, so that as the industry, all the boats can rise and we can be better for it.
The happiest that I could ever share with you, Colin, is when I took over the business. I guess the gauge of success that I've had, and I told my wife, you were right. We moved to North Florida, moved to a new house, new community. My kids had to go to school. My wife had to get a new job. I personally had to make this giant transition from the corporate world to walking on your gym clothes and pick up dog poop, right? Major difference from from being the coat and tie to your shorts and your running shoes and picking up dog poop. Totally different scenario there. But what I'm trying to say is that we totally transitioned from that, but we've learned a lot from that. And I think my point is, looking back, when I was recognized, I wouldn't say, correct me, not I, we were recognized as the Bold City Best of Jacksonville. 3 years in a row this year, we won the best pet sitting. And for you to be part of that recognition where they try to recognize every professional in the city and pet, it's nice to see. What I'm trying to say is, it's nice to see that I'm not trying to make a personal recognition, but as all of us as pet sitters being recognized as quote unquote profession,
right?
That we are no longer just a hobby. We're not just a gig, we are now being recognized as one of the professionals.
Right.
So when they set up a category, that best pet sitting company, and we've won that 3 years in a row ever since I've owned it. For me, looking back, and I tell my wife, I did something right. And I made the best decision in my life to jump into this industry. And for me, I wanted to share that with everyone because, it's sometimes, pet sitter? Is that a job?
Yeah.
I'm sure you understand.
Yeah. It absolutely. And I guess, to see yourself as this part of this broader picture, this broader movement to legitimize the industry and the job as what it is, as everyone in the industry recognizes it as legitimate and as worthwhile and as a productive and amazing place to be. But there is still that little bit of education for recognition and for to be seen as legitimate in operation. And when we share and when we all improve, that moves the industry forward, when we're working together and viewing each other as community versus competition.
Totally agree. And that was my main motivation. And on when you just asked me why I was reaching out to others, that was it. It was just a pure of a movement that we are in this together because we want to educate people in our communities that we do exist, that we are the professionals. We're not hobby people. We're not doing this as a side gig or a side income or a hobby. We were true professionals that learned and trained in a lot of risk that we get involved in doing this, and people say, well, I'll hire somebody there for free, but that free person is not going to be as trusted and as reliable as you are. And when, knock on wood, here comes the vet bills because that free service is not as licensed and insured as you are. Are you going to be able to really ask them to take care and cover for that cost? Absolutely not.
Pet Perennials makes it easy as 123 to send a heartfelt condolence gift directly to someone with a broken heart. They have this awesome direct client gift service that takes the effort off of us and ensures a thoughtful, personalized sympathy gift reaches our client or employee. All gift packages include a handwritten card, colorful gift wrap, and shipping fees across the U.S. and Canada. They'll be releasing an array of milestone gifts and greeting cards throughout 2021 that can be sent to celebrate birthdays, extend get well wishes, and to welcome new and even rescued pets. They also have a few gift options in case you need to send a sympathy gift in memory of a special human client. If you're interested, register for a free account to receive discounted package pricing rather than pay consumer prices. Since the service is leveraged on an as-need basis, there are no monthly or annual obligations or minimum purchase. Learn more and register using the link petperennials.com/pages/GPS. Enter the referral code PSC at registration. You'll then be given a unique coupon code to save $2 off any packages you would send in your first 90 days. I asked this question to Becky, and so I'm really interested to hear your take on it. What makes for a smooth transition from one business owner to another? You've touched on a few of them, but how, in your eyes, what makes that transition from one business owner to another as smooth and as easy as possible?
Let me answer that by going back to what I said earlier on the show when I said that when I met Becky, her whys in selling the business in line to my whys in buying the business. That was very important. 6 months down the road, when I owned this business, I found another pet sitting company that was for sale in South Florida, just right around the corner where we used to live, right? And out of curiosity, I started inquiring and this and that. And I went back and asked Becky, hey, Becky, do you know this company? Because they use the same software as we are, which is the PSP, the Pet Sitting Professional software. And yeah, I know them. And in fact, they were the first people who was planning to buy my business. We were talking about it, but something that didn't turn out. It wasn't meant to be. Let's put it that way. So going back to that scenario, again, to answer your question, the smooth transition was between Becky and I was really in line with why she wanted to sell the business and why I wanted the business. I wouldn't buy any businesses right now, Colin, to be honest with you. I have looked at other businesses recently, like last year. I was planning to buy a pet salon that are offering grooming service and boarding, but something did not connect. The why wasn't there. So I feel like if the why of the seller is deep enough for you to kind of dig in and dig deep, I feel like you're going to carry a lot of load in your shoulder to kind of pull that back, you know what I'm trying to say. So I think that's very, very important to have a smooth transition. It's like a matchmaking, right. You know, it's not just all about the money. It's not just monetary transaction, because Becky could have sold that business to that other company, and 6 months down the road, Becky would have probably seen her company being on sale too.
Right.
So that kind of what I could say is really just in line your whys.
Well, and I think that's an aspect that many might not think about or consider, is that they may only think about, okay, well, how do you buy a business? Well, you have the money to buy the business, or you have all of the operating procedures lined out, and that's how you buy a business. But what you're really discussing here is that there is this alignment of connections and alignment of whys, and that when those are off, as in anything in life, when your whys are off from what you're trying to get to, it gets really messy, right? It gets messy because communication breaks down. You're not working in the same goals. You may be working against each other. And to really take that time to get to know the seller, to understand what they're doing, why they're doing, their motivations, and see if that fits you, because that speaks to how they ran the business. That speaks to how they have things set up. It's really a little bit different of a connection than just going, well, all the numbers line up and everything checks out, so we're good to go. What you're saying here is that there's one more step that you need to do here, is to make sure you have that kind of connection.
Absolutely, you're right. And to seal the deal, when I was in this conference room meeting with Becky and Mike, her husband, I could not forget about this. To seal the deal, I asked them one question before we stood up and adjourned. So I asked them, so what do you guys think? I have what it takes to own your business. It's like going through an interview, but I had to ask them, because you got to know it from the seller. She has been running this business for 16 years.
Yeah.
I got to go through that interview as a new owner, because it doesn't do justice for me to take over her company and know that I'm going to run it to the ground.
Wow.
I have sold businesses in the past, Colin, and that was the problem. The people might have the money, they might have the money at debt, but they run that business to the ground because they weren't really meant to run that business. So as a seller, I guess if you really want to consider that, what really is what you want to see on the business that you worked so hard for. So for me, that was it. I had to ask both of them and say, hey, did I pass? Do you think I can do it? And I got to hear it from them.
Yeah. And she said, yes, obviously, in case anyone's wondering.
Correct. I think I passed so far.
I think so. Absolutely. And, it is part of that, especially coming into a new industry, whole cloth, needing some validation in what you were thinking, how you were interpreting things, whether you understood it appropriately. And then to have somebody with 16 years of experience go, yeah, you've got this, you're going to be fine. Like, I can see how that would really impact you, JP, going, yeah, like, okay, like, I'm on the right path. This is where I need to be going, and really puts you off on a really good footing.
Correct. Totally.
So if anyone is listening to this and they're thinking about buying a business, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I think the first advice is research, tons of research. You cannot make any decision out of emotion. And can I be honest with you? That's where I was. Again, as I mentioned earlier, my decision was quite unique. My back was pushed against the wall. When you're very emotional, you tend to make the wrong decisions in life. You tend to be a little bit more emotional or impulsive, and you make decisions that you may regret later down the road.
Right.
But a lot of it has to come with a lot of research, a lot of prayers. You gotta pray, because you can't just lean on your own understanding when you do this research. A lot of them, they may not make sense to you. But, also know that when you're buying a business, you got to go back to, why am I buying this business? Do I have a long-term goal or a short-term goal? Do I want this as a passive income, or does this would be a replacement of an income? So going back to those two options, I would say most of the businesses that are for sale out there, or you want to buy, don't expect them to replace your income from the get-go, because if so, don't buy a business. Right. So you can't just say, okay, I buy it and I'm making money next month. I'm trying to say, there's a reason why that business is for sale, and most of the time they're for sale is because they need some revamping to do, rework to be done. And then look at the numbers. Don't buy. Don't. It's like buying a house. I guess my rule of thumb is try to get the EBITDA or the profit margin that they have, and try to multiply that by 2. And I would say that would be your maximum, price point as far as how you might want to buy that business. And again, if it's a short-term goal or a long-term goal, if you think that this income could be a great passive income or a replacement of income. For me, it has to be a little bit of both. My back was against the wall. It has to be my only income and my passive income at the same time. I built it to be more of a replacement of income, but I know that when you grow this, there's residual income in this, that it will eventually be a passive income. If you guys are wanting to get into this business, again, research. You can't just, it's not a perfect industry, but it is such a great industry to be in. If anything, I would encourage somebody to do it, but do it with the right knowledge behind you. Don't just do it and you think that you could just get manuals and do it yourself. No, you gotta get that education behind you, and if you get it right on, it's just a very worthy industry to be in.
So JP, you've been in the industry for several years now, and you've done all this research. You've grown the company by leaps and bounds. Right now, is it what you thought it would be? And then a follow-up question to that is what are your plans for the future and moving forward?
I think one of the research criteria that I wanted when I wanted to buy a business was to buy a recession-proof business, and that was the first part. And I thought that being in the pet industry, everybody that sells a pet industry business tells you, "Oh, it's a recession-proof business," but it's not a pandemic-proof business. So, but
right.
nobody would have thought about thinking of a pandemic. I mean, who would, right?
Right.
But I mean, I guess looking back, I think in the several years in business, I would not change a single thing. I think the pet industry is such a great industry to be in. Beyond blessed to be in this business at the right time. I think it's a booming industry. As you can tell, every household has pets. If they don't have one walking outside, they would have a litter box inside. So, but yeah, I think I would think that I would really, one thing that I developed pre-pandemic, Colin, that I would like to share to everyone is that when I bought the business, a lot of the bulk of the business was the Monday to Friday recurring midday dog walks. I kind of anticipated that if we wanted to grow, I want to tap into the vacation pet sitting. So it was more of like a 75% of our clients were the Monday to Friday recurring people. That was the building that Becky had. Great job building up. But that was the one that we've lost during the pandemic, right? We've lost a lot of the Monday to Friday recurring business. Lucky enough, in the last couple of years, we started another kind of more of niche, which what we call the private boarding. So we can never be toe-to-toe with the big kennel facilities out there. They've spent millions of dollars to build such great facilities. But know in mind that not every pet are fit to be in a kennel facility like theirs. You're going to have puppies that are not fully vaccinated, or you're going to have hospice care that are not meant to be surrounded with that many dogs. So we try to add the private boarding, and that's what saved us through the pandemic, is that we've had people nowadays that would go staycation, maybe go drive somewhere near and have a wordy break. And, you know, we had that weekend off and we take them during the weekend. That kind of helped us a lot and grew. And in 2020, we won the best private boarding company, pet boarding company in Jacksonville, which until this day, I still don't know how we won that because we were up against these giant tycoons, you know, the big companies out there. But again, going back, it's all about the quality of service, not the quantity of service that you provide. So yeah, I would say my direction would be hopefully to grow more of the private boarding side. I think that's kind of more of where the market is right now. They wanted to. I think Rover is I think one of the thing that I would add on before we adjourn is that when I bought the business, Colin, is you have to study you have to study your market and your competition. I think the biggest competition we all have as pet sitting companies is Rover, right? So I told myself, well, if Rover will gonna dominate, how are we gonna survive the business? Yeah. One thing that I realized that Rover is good in private boarding because people would just go to their website and where do you live? I'm going to drop my dog where you live. I know where you live. Yeah. That's easy. But Rover will never, ever going to be dominate what we specialize in, which is in-home pet care, where we go to people's houses and they know that they're hiring a legitimate company versus somebody in a website that claims to be a pet sitter. We're going to dominate the in-home pet care because we're trusted, we're reliable, and they know that we are a full-blown legitimate company that could go and take care of their pets, not just their pets, but their house.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot, to focus on and to remind ourselves of the services that we provide and how we provide them. It is about quality of care, not quantity, in everything that we do as business owners. And so it's a really good reminder, especially moving forward as we look how to place our businesses in growing through 2021, that when we focus on quality, when we focus on the relationships with our clients, with our employees, if we have them, putting those first and foremost in everything that we do as a business, know that translates into a business growing and a business doing well.
Correct. Absolutely. I think that's a big reminder for me as the start of the year is I want to go back where I was when I bought the business 4 years ago. And I want to start from scratch, honestly, Colin. I want to start calling my pet sitters again, just checking up on them. Are you still happy or are we still in line with the direction of the company? And I'm going to start calling customers randomly and checking up on them. I think that's the best thing that we can do right now versus worrying about this whole pandemic that's really just causing a lot of anxiety to a lot of people.
JP, I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation and getting to hear your story and the success that you've seen over the years. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and our listeners. If people have questions and want to get connected and reach out and tag along with everything that you've got going on, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, yes, we have a website. It's www.dogdayscatnaps.com. We also have that same Facebook, dogdayscatnaps.com. You could contact us or follow us through there. My email is admin@dogdayscatnaps.com. Feel free if you have any questions at all. Happy to help out. And hopefully this segment, Colin, I appreciate you. There's so much great questions you have, and there's so much good things that we could share to our listeners. So I appreciate you and thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And happy to have you back on to talk more about business operations and your plan for growth and all of that too, because there's so much more to share. So hopefully be able to have you back on the program sooner rather than later. JP, again, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Such an honor.
Inspired is not a strong enough word to describe my feelings after interviewing JP. His determination and his goals that he had for his family drove everything that he needed to decide to end up buying a pet care business. He looked around the landscape of businesses that he could buy, and he saw something that fit his passion, fit all of his goals, all of his objectives. And then he didn't step aside. He dove right in. And that's one of my favorite parts about talking to JP is he didn't just buy a business and then step aside. He dove in and learned the business, learned the hard work, learned what his staff was actually doing, and then did everything he could to make it better, to grow it, to expand from there. And I think that is by far and away my biggest takeaway from talking with JP. that when we go to make changes, when we go to grow and expand, we have to be equipped with functional knowledge in how things operate and how things work. We can't just speculate about how something is doing or what it's supposed to do. We have to know it inside and out so that we can make the best and the most informed decisions possible that are going to actually make good, strong, real-world results. And I absolutely love that about JP. We want to thank our sponsors this week, Time to Pet and Pet Perennials, for making it possible to bring this episode to you. And we want to thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if there are other topics that you would like to have covered or people that you would want interviewed on the podcast, including yourself, please reach out to us at feedback@petsitterconfessional.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to help share your story. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will be back again soon.